This show is produced by the Harwood Podcast Network.
Hey there, everyone. I'm Cameron Harris.
And I'm Sean O'Brien. We love bringing this show to you free of charge.
And if you want to help us keep it that way, you can make a contribution to our Karma Jar.
Or by becoming one of our sponsors.
To learn more, visit our website. Coming up on Game On, we review the very cinematic video game, Heavy Rain.
Can I have one ticket for Heavy Rain?
No, it's a game, not a movie. It's a video game.
Oh, can I still get a ticket?
Okay, fine, here. There you go.
Thanks. I'm gonna go get some popcorn. We'll be right back.
No, not a movie. Welcome to Game On. Today we're going to be reviewing Heavy Rain, a very cinematic kind of video game. I mean, it really is more like a movie that you control.
That's really cool.
It's really interesting. This kind of started, it's kind of like an entirely new genre of video games, and this kind of kicked it off. It's very interesting. Heavy Rain, first of all, the storyline is pretty interesting. It's very dramatic. It's a very drama-based game. The idea is that you are actually controlling, something that makes it kind of unique. You control 4 different characters.
Interesting.
And they're each playing a different role, going on different missions and everything in this storyline. The idea is that one guy you control is a dad whose son, like 8-year-old son or something like that, has been kidnapped by a serial killer called the Origami Killer.
Okay.
And so then the storyline kind of all hinges around that. So you control the dad, who is kind of searching for it and being kind of manipulated by the killer, a journalist who's kind of researching all this, a private investigator who's researching all this, as well as an FBI agent. And it jumps back and forth between them on these different missions, and it all kind of comes together at the end.
Cool.
The thing that's different about it is that the game changes based on what decisions you make. It's very like if you've ever played Mass Effect. It's very much like that, where you have to make decisions, what you say, what you do. You know, you could skip a mission entirely, but that'll cause problems later on. You have to figure out the results somehow differently. It's very, very interesting. You can play it through, I think there's something like 120 different ways that the story can end.
Wow.
It's pretty interesting. And it's a very cinematic game. It doesn't have like a standard first-person shooter kind of a look, and it's not like a camera that's following the person around. There are literally like camera angles in every room that it cuts back and forth between. It's a very interesting way that you interact with the game. It's PS3 only.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, but it does take advantage of PS3 specific hardware.
Okay.
For example, the PlayStation 3 controller has motion sensors, so it detects tilt. So oftentimes, to do something, you have to like shake the controller. So like if you're trying to throw someone off you, you got to shake it really hard, which is pretty interesting. And that the Xbox, for example, doesn't have that motion sensing capability at the moment. And it is rated M for mature. It's a fairly dark storyline. So just be warned. You do want to be kind of prepared for it. But it is a very interesting game. So here we are in Heavy Rain. At this point, we are controlling one of the characters, the FBI agent who's investigating this, and he's just arrived at the crime scene of one of the most recent killings of the Origami Killer.
Oh, okay.
And this little arrow right here, these things pop up everywhere. There's no real interface. Instead, they're just these floating things that tell you, move to this place, do this action. Okay. In this case, move the right analog stick to the right, and this will cause something to happen. So in this case, this will clearly open our door. So we just can open that up. Now, here's one point where I want to kind of point something out. The controls for this game, this is unfortunate, but kind of a necessary evil. The controls are bizarre.
Like the weirdest you've ever seen?
Quite possibly, actually. They become fairly intuitive after a while. The problem is that they take a lot of getting used to. So like, for example, left analog stick, you would think moves you around. No, that causes you to look around. You can see your head moves. You can kind of look around, see the world. To walk, you use the left analog stick and hold down the right trigger.
Okay.
So hold down right trigger. Just holding down the right trigger causes you to walk forward. You control your direction with the left analog stick.
Okay.
So like I could just hold down the right trigger, I walk forward, not doing anything else, just holding down the trigger.
Walking.
A little bit. So it's a little bit weird. The rest of
Okay.
it is fairly self-explanatory. Arrows, like with the interactions, arrows mean like, okay, move the analog stick in this direction, or hold down the triangle or square or button. So let's go into the crime scene.
The zone is sectioned off, sir. Please step back.
Agent Norman Jaden, FBI.
You got a badge or something, Mr. Jaden?
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
And you can see we've got another little interaction here. This time it's more of a swoopy arrow, so we move the analog stick to the right and then swoop it down.
Check. You can pass.
This is dialogue. So you see these little things floating around your head. X makes you ask for Sergeant Blake.
Okay.
Who's the guy you're looking for. That's the only option you have, but other times you'll have like up to 4 different dialogue choices.
Okay.
So I'll just hit the X button.
I'm looking for Lieutenant Blake. Is he around?
I saw him arrive earlier. He's here somewhere.
Walk into the crime scene, duck under the tape. You control really everything that they do. There's no like automated system. You do pretty much everything. As an FBI agent, you have this secret tech, which are these glasses and this glove that you wear that are used to kind of investigate crimes.
Video memo recording, Agent 47023, Norman Jaden, Tuesday, October 4th, 2011. Time is 8:14 a.m.
It's like a virtual reality, augmented reality kind of a thing.
Very cool.
So you can walk around, and for example, if I hit, you can see down by my hand, it says R1. Hitting that, and it scans that area for any kind of forensic evidence. So you can see over here, we got a little icon here. Swoop down. Pops up the guy's entire records. We can see DNA of who's been there. Now you can see here we've got different questions floating around. So we can ask him about witnesses, for example. And you don't all, it's not the kind of thing where you can ask all of the questions. You usually only get to ask like a couple. So you got to pick them wisely.
So it really affects what you know and how the story goes depending on what you ask.
Yes, and you don't know, okay, well, if I ask him about his identity, do I get some kind of piece of information that's crucial or what? So now we're controlling the private investigator, and we're looking for, we can
Manfred,
just call out, looking for our contact.
Manfred,
We've got a friend with us
anybody
as well.
home?
And it's interesting, you can see as you move around the place, the camera kind of follows you, but it like cuts to different angles.
Okay.
It doesn't just kind of continuously swoop around.
So depending on where you are in the room.
Exactly. And it always has a very cinematic kind of a look. We can look down at this maybe. So you don't really have too much control. One thing that's kind of interesting too is you can actually press a button to hear what your character is thinking.
Oh.
So for example, if I press this, I can hold that down. You get options of what you want to think about.
Huh.
So like I'm thinking about, for example, the shop. And I could say, okay,
Nothing much changed here. Just the dust and the clocks ticking on and on.
and it's just in your head, but that can like give you a little bit of information. Like if you're lost, like, okay, what do I do now? It kind of helps out.
That's what my character is supposed to be thinking about.
Yeah. The graphics in this game, we were just saying, are unbelievable.
Absolutely. And just to go along with the graphics too, even the I guess you could, it's kind of like a loading page, I guess, where it shows
Yeah.
a close-up of your the character you'll be playing.
Exactly.
It's really kind of freaky because it's so lifelike. And you can see he had kind of a 5 o'clock shadow going. You see the stubble, each little hair follicle.
And spoiler alert with this scene, this is kind of interesting. As you're kind of walking around, you see that your friend Lauren over here, who's tagging along with you, she was kind of walking around the shop. Now eventually, you need to get out of there undetected. So what ends up happening is you actually, and you don't know this going into this scene,
Right.
but everything that you touch, eventually you need to wipe it all down for fingerprints. And there's a time limit too, because the police are on their way. You're not criminals, but it's kind of a long story. But the police are on your way, you need to get out of there, and no one can know that you're there. So but then you have to think back, and it's very
What did
real.
I just touch?
It causes genuine stress.
Right.
I mean, not just in the game, but
Right.
actually you're thinking, okay, what did we touch?
Yeah,
what did we
panic.
touch?
Okay.
And you're like walking around, it's like, okay, we touched this, okay, we touched that. And there's not like little icons of like, oh, wipe this down because you touched it.
Right.
You don't know. They're not marked.
What happens if you don't wipe down all the things?
I'm not sure. Because I managed to get them all wiped down when I played it through. But if you play it through, and you can go back and select different chapters and levels after the fact and replay them, but smallest change makes a big difference.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And we were also just talking, like when you're talking to someone, for example, you get these kinds of dialogue things. You need to talk to them about Lauren or Kramer, for example. One thing that gets a little bit annoying, when your character is feeling stress or panic, for example, these start to shake, get jittery and blurry. And the more stressed you are, the more they shake and blur. It's supposed to, I think, simulate kind of not being able to think clearly because you're in a panic.
Disoriented.
Exactly. The problem is, you can see, okay, I want to say that, but where's the icon for that? What button do I push?
Right. It's just kind of frustrating.
Eventually, it just gets more frustrating, and it becomes more of a gimmick than a feature.
Okay.
But considering that this is the first game it's controlled solely by these gestures with the analog stick, holding it down, oftentimes like you'll have to, there are more action-filled scenes. So eventually you are like in the middle of like a fight, for example. And you have to hit these buttons quickly, otherwise you'll get knocked out. And then you gotta go down a whole nother storyline because you were knocked out and tied up. Okay, how do I get out of this? So there's a million different ways.
Interesting.
Now, one thing you might notice, the missions that we've been showing you here aren't very dynamic. They're not very action-packed. And that is one problem with Heavy Rain. A lot of the scenes, there are some action scenes, gunfights, fist fights, things like that. There are some of those, but not very many. A lot of the chapters are just like this. So overall, Heavy Rain, a fantastic game, very unique concept, and might I add, with an awesome pause screen.
Yeah, the coolest pause screen I have ever seen.
Whatever frame, whenever you hit the pause button, whatever is going on in the game just gets this water droplet effect over it.
It's really, really excellent.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that kind of show. It's one of those games where you can tell it's taking advantage of the power of these new consoles.
Absolutely.
Because this can't be easy to do. This is taking some power.
Yeah, this is not Super Nintendo graphics.
No, it is not. So really cool. A very different concept. If you like that kind of role-playing game, it's pretty cool. If you're like a hardcore first-person shooter guy, this might not be the best game for you.
Yeah, I mean, there are games with story and there are games for shooting, and this is definitely one of the games for the story.
Yeah. Despite the fact that the controls are a little bit weird, that's kind of a necessary evil because there's really no intuitive way yet to do this yet.
It's a new type of interface.
This may be the most intuitive interface possible for this kind of game.
Yeah.
But it does take a little bit of getting used to if you're used to that kind of first-person shooter style kind of gameplay.
Move, look, aim, shoot.
Exactly. So big thumbs up from us. Now, until next time, be sure to visit our website at www.harwoodpodcast.com. We'll have the show notes for this episode and the link to where you can pick up Heavy Rain for yourself, PS3 only, keep that in mind. And if you have any questions or comments for us about the show, games you want us to review or anything like that, you can send me an email at Cameron@harwoodpodcast.com. So until next time, guys.
Game on.